So, Wendy, this welcome packet is for the new Power School administrators across the state, right?
It's
And maybe a
primarily,
reference.
yes. It's primarily going to be useful, I think, for new Power School administrators or coordinators. And some of you might call yourselves coordinators, but basically the idea is that you have a leadership role in your district with Power School. For some of you today, if you're here, if you're not, brand new to your position, some of this will be just review. And we're not going to like read the whole packet to you today. Actually, it's pretty long. So I think we can only look at a few sections in any details. So today is more of an overview.
And
But yeah,
also,
it's to be used as a
it's
reference.
also a living document, right? So everybody that has been in that role at some point was new, right? And they were wondering, hey, what where, who do I call? Where do I look to get an answer to this? Or how do I do this, right? So this is a good opportunity for the vets, the old people that have, or not the old people, sorry, the people that have been in the position for a long time to kind of give us some good feedback and help develop this kind of packet so that the people that come into that role, later in the school year or next school year, that they have a comprehensive guide or a comprehensive resource that helps them answer those questions that you had yourself when you were new to the role.
Absolutely. And some of the stuff that you guys will find in there is basically like Wyatt said, it's a guide to point you in the right direction. So what are some things that I need to know just to draw your attention to this, because it can feel like information overload at times. Where do I go? I think just being able to search and navigate is really important. Sort of tuning in to some of the different ways that we communicate, like through the listserv, just through email, through these office hours. So props to you guys for being here, because that's one of the ways that you can do that. And then just who can you ask? We are the data collection team. I think in the past, sometimes we've called ourselves the Power School team. That works. We're going to show you the Department of Education website and talk a little bit about data collections. These are some of the topics that you're going to see in the welcome packet. Again, we're not going to get to all of these today. Honestly, we'll probably, to any degree of depth, get to, again, we have less than an hour now, right? So we'll probably get to like this fourth bullet here. But if you take a look at the packet when it comes your way, we will have information in there about SUNS, also about the advanced data transfer system. So if you hear people talk about, oh, the state or ORDA sent me something in my ADT folder, sometimes I get the question, what's ADT? That's a way that we can securely transfer files to you at times that you might need. Transcripts or e-transcripts, DOTS, Power School documentation and training. We actually talked a lot about training at our last ORDA office hour. Technology plans and E-rate. So those are all some things that you could find in the packet. Okay, so here's our team. I don't have up-to-date headshots for everybody yet, so I put this puzzle picture because I feel like we do a lot of puzzles together. So that's what that is. But Wyatt is our team lead. We also have Blythe Branham, Brett Fry, Jason Jones, and me.
Where's Louise's name?
Oh, Louise. Louise is going to be serving her community through a position that she took in, let's see, which district is it? Why is it Leesburg?
Yeah, she's
so.
working with the tech department in her hometown, and is no longer working part-time for our team. So we're super sad, still in shock, but she's doing what she feels called to do. I know a lot of people on this call will miss her as well. So make sure I'm sure a lot of y'all have her home number. So send her a congratulations, and we miss you when you get a chance.
Yes, we are. Yeah, it's definitely. We are sad to be going to miss Louise, but I will say I have to give her a lot of credit. She helped us a lot in pulling together the information for our packet for you guys. So she has done a tremendous amount. That's like not even a drop in the bucket compared to all that she's done. So we love you, Louise. Our director at the Office of Research and Research of Research and Data Analysis, if I can get my prepositions right today, is Dan Rallier. We are ORDA, and he's our director. Betsy Carpenter is our deputy superintendent. So at the Department of Ed, we have offices that are parts of divisions. Divisions have several offices each. So our division is the Division of Data Technology and Agency Operations. All right, so the first thing that we have for you guys, this might seem basic, but actually our website recently had a facelift, and sometimes when that happens, even though it might be pretty, it can be frustrating for people who've have their paths carved out where they go to find things. So I'm going to drag over my screen here in a second and show you a few things, but first, with these slides, I'll just draw your attention to some stuff. So definitely bookmark the website or just memorize it, ed.sc.gov. You're going to be going there a lot looking for things. So definitely make sure you know where to go. One thing that's important to note is that you'll need to request, well, depending on your role, folks in your district may need to request login access through your local district web access coordinator. You may be the web access coordinator. So if you are the web access coordinator and you're brand new in that role, you might have specific questions to that role. But if you're not, then you want to make sure that you know who that person is. And that's usually director of technology. So I know some of you, maybe many of you share that role. There is an access for people in districts. There's also a community access, just so you know. Right there, especially if you are the web access coordinator, you might want to make sure you know where to go to ask for IT support if you have questions that might be, some of your questions might be for us, some might be more for them. So just make sure you make note of those. I'm not going to read all that to you, but this is just some information there on how to make sure you have account access. And then you can also go directly to this website, but if you do, you're not going to get this page immediately. You're going to get a login page. So let me kind of show you real quick. Hopefully you guys can all see. Hope I shared my screen correctly such that you can see the website now. So here's the website, and we're going to go through this administration box here in a second. But first, what I typically do when I log into the Member Center is I click Login. Okay, or again, you can just bookmark that other link. Either way, it takes you here, and then you log in. Type that. And then depending on your access, you're going to have different resources and applications. Okay, so one that we're not going to have a ton of time to talk about, but that's kind of cool, is the report portal. You've also got DM, district and entity management. You might have some other things too that are applicable to what you do. All right, and then in a second here, we're going to show you how to find some of our other pages. While I'm here, there are a couple of ways that you can find one of the most important pages that you'll want to know about. I think a lot of people go through here, clicking on Learn More with Administration, and there's a bunch of links right here. What you're looking for is student information systems. Okay, so if you click on that, that's one way to do it. And this landing page has a ton of stuff for you in your role. So you'll see here that you have accountability resources. Oh, and by the way, you don't have to log in to get to this page. So sorry, the way I did that, I may have made you think you had to log in to get here, but you don't. This is public. So you can click on these boxes, but you'll notice there's a lot here. Ed5, we'll be having another office hour coming up later on to talk more about that. So maybe don't worry as much about that just yet, because some of the documentation is being updated. But right here, the page that I would recommend bookmarking is your SIS documents page. And we've just updated this with some descriptions for a lot of documents that you, if this is not your first year, that you may actually already be familiar with. So we are trying to make it a little bit more searchable. You could do like a control find and maybe more easily find what you're looking for, but there's a lot here. The very first document at the top now, this is a bit of a reorganization if you're used to this page. This is our SIS, or our Student Information Data Entry Manual, so our SIS being PowerSchool. So this is kind of like your Bible of stuff, but it's not quite enough on its own. So we do have other documents that go into specifics about all kinds of things. So like we have a whole pre-code guide, but you'll notice in a lot of these, if you open them up, they will say this is meant to be used in conjunction with this manual. Okay, so that one is at the top for a reason. And then we have like a ton of stuff like here, all these documentation pieces on things like special programs data entry and stuff like that. So I'll just kind of pause there. I don't know if anyone has any questions about this page. Okay. There's something called an access management tool, which we'll look at in a second. Again, make sure you can identify, this is sort of a who, not a what. Your web access coordinator could be you. And then that person can assign roles. All right, so the next bit that we have here for you is just a piece of our packet that talks about the access management tool. So a new coordinator is going to request access to web services through this person, or I'm sorry, through the web access coordinator. And once the user is granted a login, that person is going to go to the website, the agency website, and log into the member centers we just saw. And then roles can be assigned to the user based on the person's job responsibilities. So this is just a few notes about the web access coordinator's tasks. One screen that that person might be familiar with is the membership role guide. And there is also access that web access coordinators have to search and update information for each user at both district and school levels. Okay, so both district and school levels. So just some pages to maybe try to locate if you are that person. Okay, we have a little bit more here. This is on educator access. So the educator portal, this apparently requires a bit of work on the part of the current educator or an applicant. We have a note here that applicants and educators can create a user count in their enhanced educator certification and information system. So where I just logged in on to get into that portal, you probably saw this little image right here where it says educators, click here to access your certification information. So that would be just something you would want them to be aware of. They might want to, for example, I think this would be where they would go to look at their like their certificate and make sure that things have been updated correctly if they were sending in updates and such. So I'm going to pause here. I don't know if anyone has anything.
That's also where you go to get to pull down educator IDs for your instructional staff.
Awesome. Yeah, we got, just make sure we got all the questions there. Good. Okay. All right, and then again, just a little bit more on support. So one of the things that you can also do to receive support, I'm going to show you what this website looks like. You do have to log in to access this. We have an e-services website where you can go to submit tickets, okay? But you have to log in to access this, and there is a note here. So yes, a lot of people who use this are SCDE employees, but there's also tickets can also be submitted for district and external users, okay? So this is just something to be aware of, and I don't know, maybe we can put a link to this in the chat, but I think you guys just want to be aware of that. Okay, so our listserv, we have a little bit here on our listserv. So subscribe to the listserv. If you're not getting emails, like let's say, for example, I mean, obviously all of you are here, so somehow or another, you got information about the Ortus office hour, right? So one of the ways that we send out information is through our SysSupport listserv. We also use, I mentioned this in the last office hour, we use something called the DM list. And so anyway, if you have a colleague in another district, or if you were just forwarded the information about this from someone and you're like, I'm not getting your emails, then you definitely want to make sure that you're on our listserv and on the DM list. So this is some information about how you can request that access. All right. Okay, so we're going to transition a little bit. This whole first part, let me kind of just pause for a second on the listserv in case we have questions there. This whole first bit, and there will be a little bit of this information, actually a lot of it, maybe even more, in the welcome packet. But I wanted to kind of start with that in case people had any questions about access. So feel free to put those in the chat if you do. Otherwise, we're going to change topics a little bit here. and talk about state reporting of student data. So you might have some questions about this. What is it? Where is it in PowerSchool? How do I keep track of releases? That's kind of an important thing. And then state reporting notes and guides. All right, so we just looked at the website, right? You want to make sure you have that student informations page bookmarked, because there's a lot of information there in the manual that I pointed out that's going to help you make sure that you are keeping up with state reporting, because we try to keep that manual up to date. We also have, transitions in our office as well. And so with the start of the new year, we're about to have a new update to that manual, but we're also going to show you where to go so you can actually see releases on the PowerSchool website too. Okay, we've already looked at that. Okay, on our PowerSchool page, yep. So I'm going to skip over this because this is more just sort of navigation stuff. Well, you know what? Actually, tell you what, this relates directly to state reporting and data collection in terms of resources. Let me show you another place that would be good for you guys to know to go to. So I'm going to go back to that information systems landing page. And then if you actually click right on the teal box here where it says PowerSchool, it's going to take you to this page, which might also be really useful. So right now, you guys know that we're transitioning, or if you don't know, I'm going to tell you now, we're transitioning into using Edfi as our way of doing, as that's going to be the way that you do state reporting. But right now we're still using Enrich. We're going to be connecting to Edfi soon. So we'll be doing FI data publishing, but we also have to continue to make sure we know what's up with our state reporting through Enrich, or using Enrich. So there's an FAQ page here that I would recommend taking a minute of professional time to read. Okay, so we've got some resource documents down here. There's just a lot of information here. Okay, and we're going to hit on a few of these in our slides. All right, so some things that we're going to think about, and there is a good bit to consider with your collecting data through the student information system. There's data collection, the process itself. There's enriched data collection, verifying and uploading data through the tool, and then Edfi, which we won't talk about in this session today. But this is a sample, okay? So you'll notice that the data collection, this screenshot right here is an old data collection schedule. We have a new one that is now posted. So maybe someone can put a link into the chat to the data collection schedule. I'll also show you where to access it on the website, but you definitely want to keep an eye on that schedule. It is occasionally updated. I think some dates usually are set and kind of remain in place, but I would keep an eye on it. It provides deadlines so that you can plan ahead. And I think that's a great thing to do if you're the type of person who might say, you know what, I've got so much going on, I'm going to forget, that exact date, and it might sneak up on me. I would recommend putting something on your calendar, right, to kind of help you remember, oh, I've got this collection is coming up, and that way it doesn't fall through the cracks. And you can also you might have dependencies within your district, right, people who you need to kind of poke to be able to do your collection and submission successfully. All right, so a little bit on Enrich. So again, I showed you guys the Enrich FAQ page that we have. On that page, these are just a few of the things that you're going to find there, and here are a few details. So again, a lot of words on the slide, but wanted to make sure we had for you some of this information. So the agency uses the Enrich data collection tool to collect district data from PowerSchool. And each district PowerSchool administrator actually has to manually submit the data to the agency or schedule automatic submissions. So the agency does not pull school or district data. Each PowerSchool district level coordinator or IT director must submit it. So again, that's another good reason to make sure that you have on your calendar those data collection dates. All right, the Enrich program data, IEP, RTI, 504, et cetera, are not collected by Enrich data collection. The only assessment data that will be collected are the Dial 4 scores for pre-kindergarten students. So a few notes there about Enrich data collection. All right, before we get into transcripts, let me show you guys where that data collection schedule is. This is another way you can navigate back to that information systems landing page. Just click on data and reports. So that's another way to do that. From this landing page, again, in your PowerSchool feature box, you have your data collection schedule. Notice that it was recently updated. And there it is. So you can just bookmark that. Even
And
when
when there's updates, you notify the listserv. That's right.
Yep, we do. We do. We definitely, we pretty much whenever we update something, certainly something as important as this, we're going to let you guys know. So yeah, be on the listserv. One small thing, I don't know, I'm just going to mention this just because some of you I know are very, very observant, and that's wonderful. That's what we want. But if we, let's say one of you realizes, you know, oh, there's something that you recommend that an update for, and we do it. Sometimes it takes like 24 to 48 hours for the actual update to appear. So one thing you can sometimes do is if you like clear your cache or something, if you know that there was an update but you're not seeing it. But yeah, this you should all be seeing this correctly now. If it says anything other than 22, 23, just let us know. Okay. So we have a few other notes here before we just on some things we wanted to draw your attention to that are in the welcome packet, and then we'll take some questions at the end. So transcripts. There is a, let's see, I'm gonna pull up a page here that we have for you guys on transcripts. There's some notes here. ORTA PowerSchool staff delivers the South Carolina standard transcript templates for PowerSchool to South Carolina districts and schools. Okay. These templates provide standard reports for students when applying for South Carolina scholarships through the South Carolina Commission on Higher Education and when fulfilling requests for applications to colleges and universities. And there's a link here. You'll see a link to this information in your welcome packet. But again, I want to show you guys since I have it pulled up for you. Here we go. So one of our pages that you can access through that PowerSchool feature box is South Carolina e-transcripts. So here are the transcript templates. This is some information about South Carolina e-transcripts with Parchment. And we're not going to talk a lot about Parchment right now, but if you're curious about that, go ahead and start taking a look and poking around on this page. We also use Parchment now for several digital credentials, including the employability credential, which will be good to know about, and also the diploma pathways, seals of distinction. So it is good to start learning a little bit about Parchment. And that's one way that you can do it is by starting with thinking about e-transcripts. I don't know, is there anything else you want to share about e-transcripts there, Wyatt? I don't know that I have a ton of information here. It's just to sort of draw attention to the fact that that's in the packet.
So there was an interesting situation that happened at the tail end of last year. I guess it was actually last month. So a high school realized that the final transcripts they printed at right before June 15th didn't have the right class rank, and so they were getting calls from USC and from Clemson saying, "Hey, look, these transcripts don't match this class rank report. We're not going to award your students from your high school scholarship funds, state scholarship funds, until you get it sorted out." And the district and the school called me and said, "Hey, what do we do?" And I said, "Well, it's a little bit out of my hands. This is Commission on Higher Education is the authoritative source for state scholarships. Let's talk with them and see what we can do." And we met with them and worked out a remediation plan. And part of that remediation plan was to actually like regenerate all the transcripts for all their high school students, and they'd have to send those to every institution that that student had applied to, or all their students had applied and been accepted to, right? And so the the counselor was looking at us. They're like, that's a crazy amount of work to do, right? And I don't know. I assume it is. I've never been in that position, so I took their word for it. But anyway, I said, hey, look, do y'all use Parchment, right? And they said, yeah, of course. And I said, well, you've kind of got you've kind of got a way out there, at least to reduce the level of effort. You can upload the new transcripts to the Parchment app, and then work with their tech team just to resend those out to all the schools that that your 12th graders and 11th graders had applied to, right? And they said, "Oh my gosh, Wyatt, that sounds like a fantastic idea, and that's going to save me a heck of a lot of time." So I don't know what other applications are used across the state. I think Naviance is one, and perhaps some other ones, but we've got a relationship with Parchment, and we cover the cost of electronic transcripts. The state agency does. So, when stuff like that happens, if we've got relationships with Parchment, to try to, if it would have been like Parchment said, hey, we can do that, but it's going to cost you, right? That's something that we can negotiate and work with them and try to sort out. So I definitely recommend Parchment. I think they do a good service, and we're, like Wendy said, we're starting to use them for our digital credential distribution, and we're looking at a project to produce electronic diplomas, and there's someone we're talking with about the feasibility of that project.
Yeah, thanks for sharing the background there, Wyatt. I think it's helpful. I mean, this is obviously an important, a really important piece, even though, it's something that is thought about a lot later in the year. I think from the very get-go, it's important to start thinking about transcripts. Right. Okay, just a little bit on documentation and support. Again, in our last ORDA office hour, we talked about some training that's coming up. So I won't go into detail on that right here, but if you want to know more about that, we did a lot of overview in the last one, and I think I sent a link to that ORDA office out, but it needs to still be posted to the website. So that should be posted soon, but the link is available. And we actually have some advocacy letters too that might help you if you're, if you need that to kind of tell people what it is that you're requesting support to do for training. Okay, release notes. We definitely want to talk about this. So in the past, we've done a couple things with release notes. We actually used to have a really cool sort of summary of release notes on our website. But what we'd like for you guys to do now is to just make sure that you get used to going to what PowerSchool has. And the reason for that isn't that wasn't amazing to have. It's just we kind of have talked with PowerSchool about working with them on making sure that we, in a sense, have some collaboration in terms of how the release notes are worded to make sure they're clear. And because that was one of the reasons I think that we had them on our website before, is just to make sure that the wording was clear for everybody. So hopefully these can all make good sense to everyone. And if you guys have questions, you can ask. But this is where they're located. So let me drag over. I know sometimes it's easier to just see kind of live on a the web page. So just make sure that you, if you need to look back sometimes, you can go back to the previous release notes. Those are really useful. You'll notice that some of these, I think this one had Ed5. That one. Anyway, you're also going to see notes on updates with Ed5 as well there. So if you go to the page, if you used to read the notes that we had on our page, sorry, I'll show you that again, because some of you may have, again, if you're, here, let me go through here. If you're used to going through this link right here in the feature box, to look at release notes. You can still look at these archives, and we'll probably put these in we'll probably kind of clump these together in one archive, because moving forward, what we want you guys to do is go here. So you click on this link and it just takes you directly to where you need to go. If you need to look at, this is South Carolina. If you need to look at all states, if you need to look at core, you can navigate there from here as well. Okay.
Hey, will you click down on the data dictionary link
Sure.
down there on that page?
Oh, good call. Yeah. All right, hold on, let me collapse this to make it easier to see. All right, so data dictionary, you guys see that?
And how about the SC Stu X? Is that one?
Hold on. Oh, this one down here.
Mm-hmm. So this tells you the description of each field on the South Carolina students extension table, right?
Yep.
So if you're ever looking to query some of the fields that are in state reporting, or write any reports, or what are they called in PowerSchool, where you like write the query and set it to execute on at certain times, AutoCom or AutoSend or something like that. Anyway, if you ever want to look up a South Carolina field and get the data type and the field name and the table name, this is your spot. All right, sorry for derailing, Wendy.
No, it's good. Sorry, I was talking and I realized I had muted myself. So thank you for that. Yeah, that's definitely good to know. Okay, a note on validations. So just so you guys know, I don't know if everybody who's on the call if your districts use level data, but that would be good to know about, could be very helpful to you for your data quality. I don't know, Wyatt, what would you share about level data for this group? If they aren't, I guess, where could they go if they're not very familiar with level data validations?
Well, if you're not familiar with them, turn them on and email me. The level data validations are going to be increasingly important as we transition away from enriched data collection. And the reason there is that moving to an API-based data collection and submission platform that is based on the EdFi standard, what's going to happen is checks for referential integrity happen at the application level. And what I mean by that is, I hope y'all have heard of like an orphaned record, right? So if you delete a student record out of your PowerSchool database, which you never should, but there's still attendance records for that student in your system and special program enrollments, you aren't able to do anything with those data. And so what an API and EdFi-based data collection platform does is it checks to make sure that that student record exists in the ODS before it actually publishes the special program and stuff like that. And also checks to make sure certain fields are completed, right? Like a gender, a federal ethnicity, and stuff like that. And what happens is that if those fields aren't completed, then or aren't filled out by your schools, right? The data won't move from PowerSchool to EdFi, where it's used for compliance reporting. It's held up in PowerSchool as either an error or a dependency, and these are the things that level data actually checks your data for, right? They're able to check, their application is able to check at the application level, so at PowerSchool level, and see what kind of data quality problems exist that could and would prevent the API from taking that PowerSchool data and publishing it to the ODS. So it's going to be increasingly important as we move forward in this new world, right? This new data collection world, that that we all pay attention to the level data errors and the DQR errors, and get them cleaned up as quick as we can, so that you know, all the records that you need to submit for compliance reporting actually make it to the ODS, and not just for compliance reporting either, right? So there'll be different reports and different applications that are built on top of the EdFi infrastructure. And that's one of the roles of the district data governance group. And but if your data is not making it from PowerSchool to the EdFi ODS, then those applications, those reports, aren't going to be able to utilize those data points to populate them, right? So it's a topic. It's new for South Carolina. This is how things work in most other states across the country, right? If data doesn't pass a integrity check or a validation check, it doesn't make it to a place where it can be reported on. It gets sent back to the school districts and say, hey, look, these are the problems that need to be cleared up before we can accept your data. But with enriched data collection, that's not the way we've operated for the past 10 years. You know, we check for problems after the data land, and then populate the DQR errors with those problems. But anyway, it's going to be a hot topic as we move through the school year.
Right. So on that note, keep in mind, data collection starts the first time a student enters your door. So we have a note here to stress to clerks, administrators, anyone who works with enrolling students into PowerSchool, the importance of requiring a birth certificate or other legal document to verify the child's full name and birth date. So you'll notice a couple of the fields that are required fields for enrolling a student into PowerSchool. We've got legal name. We've also got preferred name. And so there's a note here that legal name well, anyway, that's kind of tied to the reminder that we had on the previous slide that might be needed for certain documents. So to make sure that can be verified. And then some other required fields are phone number, enrollment date. Enrollment date must be the actual date that the student begins attending classes. That's an important note. And full-time equivalency, or FTE, set up by the district administrator but entered at the school level. So these are some things that we do have in some of our upcoming trainings that we're releasing to you, but we wanted to make sure that those are also included in your welcome packet as reminders. All right, I know we talked about the data collection schedule, but just a note here, a few notes, really just data collection notes, major collection dates. So I think Wyatt already talked a little bit about these, but just keep these in mind. Again, just bookmark your data collection schedule, and I would set some calendar reminders based on what you know you need to do.
Wendy, I've got good news. The enriched data collection is open this morning, starting this morning, for updates. So DC3 managed the initial data submissions for the entire state. Those are complete except for one district. And so we've opened it up for data resubmissions for all districts. I'll post something to the listserv later on today. I just haven't had a chance to this morning.
Oh, that's awesome. Great news.
Yeah, Shirley, I'm passing your comment to Lisa's team, the data quality team, and to Level Data. And then Wendy, Candace has a question about when will this be implemented, and I think she's referring to EdFi. Can you take that one?
Oh, EdFi, sure, yeah, I can take that one. Yeah, so we've kind of thought really hard about the best sort of rollout schedule for this year. And what we've determined is that we're going to divide the districts in the state into two groups. So we're actually going to have group 1, group 2. One will be the very end of September is going to be the first part of the EdFi rollout, and then the other group will be like either the first week of October. I think there's a week that's like split September, October. So it might be like maybe the first full week of October. And that will enable us to, with the first group, sort of monitor the rollout, make sure things are going as smoothly as we anticipate. And then with the second group, go ahead and just continue on and finish out with the rest of the state. So we will very soon be sending out that schedule to you all. You'll know exactly which group your district is in, and there will be a little window, so it'll be like, it won't be like you have to do everything in one day. You'll have maybe a week in there, so you could plan for it. I will tell you guys, fortunately, connecting to your AP, your Ed5 ODS through the API, it is not difficult. Many in the room have probably gone through this before last year or even in the previous year with our pilot. And we hope to have just a nice, clean welcome packet for you with that ready to send out. Well, we will have that ready for you, as well as the schedule, so you'll know exactly how to connect. And one of the things that you're going to need for that is something called a key and secret, so credentials for your district. Without going into too much detail, the Ed5 ODS is by year. So each year, you're going to need to create something called a profile, a new profile, and you're going to need a new key and secret, so essentially new credentials, and a new URL, so it's a third piece, for that year to connect to the ODS for that year and to publish data to it. So please don't use your old credentials. I mean, if you've already tried and done that, just let us know. We can help, fix that. But don't use the old credentials to connect, because you're going to have new credentials. And we'll make sure we want everyone to feel comfortable and know exactly what to do. So we anticipate a very smooth rollout. We also want everybody connected before our Ed5 regional workshops. So that's another reason for that time frame. We want to let you get settled and then kind of, into September, go ahead and get people onboarded. All right. A little bit more on our data collection dates. There's a distinction here between the QDC data collection and the 45-day funding extracts. So the 45-day QDC data collection is a snapshot of data on your 45th day of school, individual student data, and the 45-day funding extracts are aggregate data. So queries remain open longer and allow you to collect EFA, EIA errors. I'm sorry, not collect, correct, and recreate extracts and retransmit the extracts to the agency.
I'm going to collect them.
Okay. You guys correct them. These concepts also apply to our 135th day data collections. So I think that's a good little distinction to have in there. Okay, and I think this might be our last note here. I want to make sure we have 10 minutes or so for questions. So enrich PowerSchool data collections, just a note on what we collect. So if you're new, that might be a question you have, like what kind of data is this state collecting? So we collect data that's required by or for purposes of the following. So state board regulations, law or proviso, federal state reporting, accountability, accreditation, funding. And one thing it can be challenging is sometimes the regulations. So again, if you're new, if you're not new, you're probably like, yes, we know this, but things change, right? So each year there might be new provisos, or sometimes mid-year things come out that are required, and that can make things challenging. But we're trying to, one of the things that as a team we're putting our heads together on right now is we have some ideas for how to, as much as possible, kind of reduce the number of instances of different sort of changes for you in terms of what things might look like in PowerSchool where data is entered throughout the year. So it can be frequent, honestly. So that's why we want you to stay tuned. And this year it might continue to be a bit frequent, but that is not something that we're aware that can be a challenge. And so we're trying to do all we can to help you guys stay abreast of what's going on, but also to sort of reduce where we can, if a change, for example, isn't required, but it's more sort of a want than a need that maybe someone has brought to our attention, we're trying to figure out a system to reduce that as much as possible while still making sure, of course, that we have the data that's needed to meet these requirements. Okay, there are a few diagrams. I don't know that we need to talk through these right now just due to time, but there's also, I didn't link to it today. VC3 has a really great webinar where they really talk through Enrich. So if you're new, I know we're transitioning to Ed5, so there's that, but you might still really benefit from watching some of the webinars that VC3 has put out. And there's one that I can maybe make sure is included in our next data collection digest, especially for those who are not as familiar. So this is a little diagram about how the data collection module works. And I'm sorry, and I'm going fast, but I want to make sure we have a minute for questions. But there is a walkthrough presentation on that and a little bit of an explanation here about the tool. So queries are written by the South Carolina Department of Ed based on data collection needs. The collections are opened and closed by SCDE, and the data are sent directly from the District Enrich server to the server at the Department of Ed. And then PowerSchool data are collected through Enrich, and data collected from the Enrich IEP are kept in separate databases. So some validations are done as you collect the PowerSchool data. And then a little bit more here about the tool being a two-step process. The first step involves the collection of data from the district PowerSchool server, puts this data on the district's Enrich database, and then validations are run against this collected data, and the validation report created may be viewed and or downloaded from Enrich. And I think Wyatt talked about and alluded to some of this earlier, and the differences in this and what you would experience with EdFi. The second step here actually submits the collected data from the District Enrich server to the South Carolina Department of Ed. And the first time you submit data for a data collection, all data are sent. The next time, only the changed data are sent. And each district can schedule data collections and data submissions to occur automatically. So those are some good notes that are right there for you if you're not as familiar with how it works. Okay, and a screenshot of inside the data collection tool documentation. And there's a note here to check log entries to ensure that data are collected and submitted. That's kind of weird to break that word up. Submitted successfully. All right, and our final note, the PowerSchool administrator may download the actual data file submitted through Enrich by clicking the download link. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing here for a second. Hopefully you guys were able to submit a few questions. I know we had some good questions in the chat that hopefully got answered, but remember that we have this form for you too if you have questions that you might like for us to add to our FAQ. I'm going to turn my camera back on. Are there any other questions for the good of the group today, or anything that you'd just like to chat about with your beginning of the year experiences? The
Were there
chat's
any
kind of quieted
questions
down.
on that sheet, Wendy?
So far we only have one.
Okay.
So it's okay. Here, maybe I can throw the link back up in the chat in case anybody wanted to, but maybe didn't get the link.
Good. That packet was one of the last things Louise started developing for us before she moved to the school district level. So I'm excited to have it, and I think it's a response to questions that she's gotten over the years from people new to the PowerSchool coordinator role, and she kind of lumped them together and said, hey, before I leave, wouldn't it be nice if I created a resource that could be used in the future for new PowerSchool coordinators that come along? And I said, Louise, that sounds fantastic. And so we're in the process of just kind of just putting it in a format that we can distribute each year to the new people and helping them along. But I think it's awesome. So Wendy, thanks for giving an overview of this. And then I think once we distribute the packet or whatever it becomes to the field, then I hope that the people that have been in the role for a while not the old people, but the people that have been in the role for a while, will have some feedback and say, hey, I think you should include this. I think you should include that, yada, yada, yada. And we can really develop a good resource that'll help the new people along. So thank you for
Absolutely.
this.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I know it's kind of, I just kind of went through, I wish I was an expert on all the pieces, but hopefully like Wyatt said, it will just be a good resource for you guys, and maybe you'll have questions. There's one here. Is there anything we need to know about SUNS? I know we didn't talk about SUNS. Let me show you where you can find some information about that real quick. So there are two places actually right now. So there's one update that I'm aware of, and I assume, so first of all, on this landing page, again, this is a great page to bookmark, the Sun installation guide. This is good to know about. We'll go there in a second. We also had a recent note on SUNS in our digest. There was sometimes what I'll do is I'll take, if they're from our office, if there is a something we need to get your attention on, like, hey, this is important, this thing has been updated, or this is new information, I'll put it in the digest and put it through an email. So I think it was either the last digest or maybe the one before that we had a note on SUNS. So I'll just direct everyone to this. So this was the digest on July 29th. So there is a note there. And this may be old news to you since then, but it says with the start of the new school year, some districts may reinstall their SUNS extract plugin. You can find the latest installation guide here and some 2 important points to think about. If you just want to go to the SUNS section of that page, I'll go there real quick so you can see what that looks like. So it's right here. Okay, so this is the installation guide. Sorry, I think if we actually click on, which is good to know too, we click on this, there might be more links. Yeah, so it's just the same two links. The SUNS, yeah.
And then, so if people have questions about SUNS, I mean, just to level set, the Office of Research and Data Analysis has, 4 different teams, and SUNS is managed by the data validation team, and they prefer to get their requests through, or their questions through, e-services. So you can either do that, or sometimes if you email Alan Renton and Lisa Woodard, you'll get a response. But I know their preference is to get everything through e-service tickets. And Wendy, with our team, I prefer email, and I think you do as well. But
Yeah.
if y'all don't get a response from us, something weird happened, and definitely second request it. Give us a day or so, but we try to be pretty quick in getting back to you. I know I'm not always successful, but I definitely attempt that.
You can keep poking if it doesn't work first time. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's okay.
You aren't going to hurt my feelings.
Nope. All right. Well, it is 9:59, so we'll go ahead and close up. It looks like the questions have slowed down. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us, and we'll make sure that.
I'm sorry. Can you put the full URL for that packet? I think you put the tiny URL in the chat.
Oh,
Can you put the full URL? Yeah, we have tiny URLs blocked.
Blocked.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Hold on. Yeah, it's a security risk, so we have them blocked.
I understand.
Thanks.
Okay. Here you go. And that's just actually, that'll just take you the packet. I don't have a link for you yet, but I will this week.
Okay.
I'll send it both as a link, and I'll probably send you like an attachment as a PDF. But the link is nice because if something gets updated, then you get the update. But this is just a link to the PowerSchool. Any questions that you have, because sometimes you might be looking at it once you receive it this week and think, oh, I really do have a question, and then we can add that to our FAQ.
All right, I've got to drop. Thanks everybody for being here. Thanks, Wendy, for leading us through this, and appreciate you and Louise developing this resource. And thank you everybody in the field. Or thanks in advance for helping us build this thing out to something bigger and better and awesome. Okay.
Have a great day. Bye.